Hey guys, I'm Justin with CBI Off-Road. We're going to take a couple minutes to show you how to cut the front of your 2020 Colorado to ensure fitment for our full width bumper. Stay tuned, check it out. Okay, so we're going to talk about our cut here. This is going to be a pretty simple cut. We're going to follow a lot of existing body lines on this truck. So basically this line in between the painted plastic and the non-painted plastic, you're going to cut that seam right there and follow along. And then once you get to the grill, this angle coming down, we're going to keep that angle and make a cut down here. You don't have to go all the way because the next cut is going to come across here. And we'll show you that in a little bit more detail when we get it all taped out. But basically below this line, I'm starting at a ½ inch down, but we're probably going to sand and end up at 3/8 or maybe even a ¼ inch. But it's always better to start long and sand to your line. So we mark down from this body line on the grill about a ½ inch, and we're going to come straight across, and then we'll do the same thing on this other side. So let me get this this line taped out, and we'll show you the details on this one. Okay, so there's just a couple things that we need to do before we can make our cut. There's a few of these T15 Torx bolts that need to come out. There's 3 here, there's 2 more on this back side, and there's also a 7mm bolt right here on this back side that needs to come out. The skid plate also needs to come down, and these are 15mm bolts that we'll remove. Once the skid plate comes down, it'll expose a couple more of the T15 screws that need to come out. So those will be removed, and then the tow hooks can remain until after we make the cut. The bumper will slide over the tow hook, and then we'll be able to get to the bolts a lot easier to take the tow hooks out. Okay, so we got our skid plate off and we got all our small T15 Torx hardware out. So now we're ready to make our cuts. So like I said, we're gonna follow this line, and I have a 5-inch cutoff wheel here. Make sure you're wearing a good face shield because this plastic's gonna be flying everywhere. It's melting, you definitely don't wanna get it in your eyes. And just be careful that you don't get into this painted surface. So even if you're a little bit low, that's okay. You just don't want to get into this painted surface. So basically right in there, and we're going to follow it all the way around. Okay, so the bumper's cut now. We still need to kind of adjust everything and sand it and make it look, you know, nice. But right now we need to remove this plastic piece and get it out of our way so that we can smoothly sand. So there's 3 clips that hold this in. It's a little difficult. I got a clip removal tool that kind of get up under there and pry them out. Just take your time with it. It's hard to get in there, but once you find the right technique, they'll come right out. There's also this temperature sensor in here that we'll need to relocate. We'll show you some more details on that when we get closer. And the tow hooks can now come out also, and those are an 18mm. There's 2 bolts that hold that in. There's also one 10mm bolt right here to remove this bracket. And once we get all that off, then we can start cleaning up our cuts and sanding. In the pile. Okay, and after you get the tow hooks out, make sure that you retain this hardware because it's going to be reused on the new CBI bumper. Okay, so everything's cut and sanded, And what we need to do now is remove this factory crash bar. It's got 4 16mm bolts. This is our factory temp sensor that had a bracket right here. We're going to be installing a relocation bracket, which I'll show you in a minute. But one of two ways to proceed from this point. You can remove the grill, which there's a few T15 bolts on top and a couple 10mm bolts on the bottom and a series of clips. What we're going to show you how to do is we're going to remove this plastic, make a few cuts here so that we can leave this grill in place. All right, so when making our cuts, we want to pay extra attention to this sensor wire. We want to keep that out of the way. So it's kind of fed into this centerpiece, so I've kind of removed it out and we'll just kind of put it out of the way. But we're going to want to cut this centerpiece kind of along the top, and excuse my left-handed line, but this is all going to be covered up by your winch, so the cut isn't very crucial, but basically cutting along that all the way back. This side here, we're going to cut along this line here, and basically that 90-degree angle right there. Again, sorry with my left-handed handwriting. And then back to the bumper. And this side, same thing, along this opening right here, along this area, along this right angle, and back to the body. Again, these cuts are going to be buried under the bumper and the winch, so don't worry about making them too pretty, and we'll get it cut. All right, so we got that plastic cut out of the way. Next step is we have this kind of rubber and plastic piece that is kind of an air dam. We're gonna pull that out. There's one plastic clip up here, and then it basically just sits in these slots down here that maybe a little screwdriver, kind of give it a pry, and pull straight up, and it should come out for you. Ooh, got some presents back there. All right, so the cutting continues. Next part that we need to cut out of the way is this bracket here. So we're using the 5-inch cutoff wheel, so you gotta be a little creative on how to get this in here without, you know, damaging finished product. So I'll basically kind of plunge up from the bottom, and that'll let me get through this piece, and then we'll make the cut on the ends and just kind of work my way up. I'll slide the wheel in so I can cut this top piece. And then once that's out of the way, I'm able to get in there and make this sideways cut. This piece also, we'll go ahead and get that cut off, and it's just gonna be a straight up, and you could probably just break it off. Honestly, it's not in there real well. So we'll go ahead and get this cut done and show you what it looks like. Okay, so in our case, we have a really tall winch. So we're gonna need to do a little additional cutting. If you're not running a winch or maybe a low profile winch, you're probably good to go in this configuration right here. But for us, again, we're gonna have to cut a little bit more. So right on the inside of these two grill support brackets, we're just gonna cut vertically right through this plastic, again here and right here. And then we're also gonna cut this center support out horizontally somewhere in here. These cuts won't be visible, so keep that in mind. But also we have our temperature sensor wire that we need to get out of the way so we don't accidentally cut it. So it's just kind of ran in there, and you can pop it loose and basically just kind of drag it here where it's out of the way. And then we wanna also put in some protection for our radiator so that when we're cutting, we're not throwing all that melted plastic into our radiator. So here's how we're set up, and let's go ahead and make our cuts. All right, so here's our temperature sensor for our 2020 Colorado, and from the factory there's a lot more plastic in here that we've removed to make way for our winch that we're installing. So we're going to need to relocate this, and basically we're just clipping it into our relocation bracket on the back side. It has these little tabs and it just clips in right there, and then we're going to use this factory 10mm bolt and threaded hole, and we're just going to thread that in there and tighten it up with an impact. Okay, and just make sure it's sitting upright and where it can be in contact with open air from your grill. And then we'll get some zip ties and we'll re-secure this this wiring harness along this beam right here. Okay, so right now we're getting everything prepped on our bumper. We got our light bar, we got our winch, got some fog lights going in this as well. This is really straightforward on mounting the light bars and winches. Just make sure that you put the light bar in first. This trim, we're gonna install it along this top edge, and on the end, you'll kind of cut it at an angle to try to match the grill. But we'll show you that in closer when we get to that time. But right now we have these plates for the fog lights, and these are going in just like this. There's 4 bolts that you're going to use. It's a 11mm on the back and an Allen on the front. They just go through these holes, and you want to get them all started before you tighten them. Okay, so we got our fog light mounted up to our bracket, and I'm leaving everything kind of loose right now so that we can get it in place, and we're going to adjust it and get it in position and then give it the final tightening. But these brackets are slotted here, so you can adjust it front to back here, and then you can see it's slotted vertically also, so you can have that up and down adjustment. And we got our carriage bolt here, so we'll just slide in our bracket and capture it with a nylon lock nut on this side. Okay, so now we need to secure this inner fender liner, and what I did is I removed one of the little clips here and located the hole in the bumper right here with this pick. And then you just want to take a 1/4-inch drill bit or similar size, drill this out larger, and now we kind of need to eyeball where we're going to cut. We need to basically cut straight across and then up, so that this will fit behind the bumper. So I'm just using a pair of scissors and going along like so. Now this should tuck behind here, and we'll get this clip on. Okay, so we got the inner fender liner secured here, so now we're going to kind of push it into place and make a Sharpie mark on how we're going to cut that. So we have over here this factory bracket right here, and a 10mm bolt that we pulled out we can insert in there to secure this. So to mark it, we're just kind of shoving it into the corner, and we'll get our mark going here. We'll have to cut some of that vertically, and then right along here, basically straight, and then we'll come up at a diagonal line and meet up with this other line. So there's basically how we're gonna cut. And I just got some scissors. We'll make that cut. So now that we've made our cut, we're gonna locate our hole to drill to mount. And you can kind of see when you're looking from this angle, you can kind of see the top of the hole. So you just wanna locate that with your pick. And then we're gonna use our same 1/4 inch drill bit and drill that hole. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's install tutorial of the front bumper on this 2020 Chevy Colorado. This customer is ready to go wheeling right now. It looks great. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Thanks.